Go ahead and close your eyes if you can. Relax your forehead. Unclench your jaw. And relax your shoulders away from your ears. Together, we're going to take one deep breath in through the nose, filling up your lungs. And on your exhale, exhale out your mouth, letting go. We're going to take one more deep breath in together, in through your nose, really filling up your diaphragm and your lungs. And when you get to the top, hold it just for a moment. And exhale, letting go out the mouth. If you close your eyes, go ahead and open them. Welcome back to Mindful Moves with me, your host, Daniela Jentsch. I am very excited about the topic of overwhelm, and the reason being is because I think it's so relevant to how we as a society have been functioning. I have a feeling it's been around for quite some time, especially in the last few years. That's the feeling that I get from conversations. That's the feeling I get in my own personal life. And this overwhelm feeling is so often placed on us. We are told that it is a personal failure, that we are not doing enough, that we are not achieving enough or being more productive. Because some of us are waking up in the morning and we are already feeling overwhelmed before the day has begun. We have that low grade hum of anxiousness maybe, or overwhelm is a very specific type of feeling though. And you have all these tabs open in your head. You have your to-do list running through your head as soon as your eyes open. Maybe you're thinking about an email you need to get to. Maybe you're thinking about all the chores you have to get done. And the pressure starts building and you can feel that pressure. And that's that internal hum or vibration that you're feeling. And I'm here to tell you that it is not a personal failure. If you take anything from just this beginning section, it is not a personal failure and you are not lazy. Do I think that we can all improve and self-improve? Of course. I have many episodes on how we can do that. But in this very case, I think it's so important to remember the role that society has and our environment has. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. We're going to talk a little bit more about where that feeling comes from. We're going to speak about how that affects us, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to turn down that noise and be able to wake up in the morning and not have this overwhelm at the beginning of our day. So the reason why I like explaining things like this is because you need to stop judging yourself, you need to stop being hard on yourself, and you need to start understanding yourself with a non-attachment, with no judgment, with curiosity, because you are not going to move anywhere in life if you are constantly judging and shaming yourself for how you feel. Because it's not something you can control or switch on or off. It's just how you feel. But instead of taking it and then making a whole story around it, we are going to learn more about ourselves, because that's the tool you have. You get to understand how the brain works. You get to understand your nervous system. And if you're here today and you're learning about yourself, you are ahead of so many people, because you are actually taking the time to get to know yourself, which will create a beautiful relationship with yourself. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to explain. We're going to understand ourselves. And where I'd like to start is the feeling of overwhelm and what that actually means in our bodies. So as I mentioned, it could be a really full email inbox. Maybe your manager's driving you crazy with work. Maybe you have a household to obtain and upkeep. All of these, whatever example comes up for you, whatever is stressing you out in this moment or bringing that feeling up for you, it is relevant. Do not compare yourself to anybody else's life, because it is yours and you are allowed to feel how you feel. So now that that's out the way, let's focus on that feeling of overwhelm. That feeling of overwhelm is, if I can describe it in a very simple way, our brains, much like a computer, have an internal, let's say, storage. It can only keep and hold onto a certain amount of data before it's at full capacity. And that's kind of how our brains work. We have so much stimuli around us Everything is in motion. There is so much going on around us, and we are constantly absorbing. But what's happened is that we've absorbed so much too fast, too quickly, and at a rate that is just not normal for our brain, because we never used to absorb so much as we do now. And so the understanding of how your brain works is going to help you moving forward, to turn down that noise, to work with yourself instead of against yourself. Because yes, this is the society that we have. It's loud and fast. We have lots of lights. We have lots of screen time. That's how it is. And you can navigate your way into a feeling of calm just by understanding that, but truly grasping it. Remember that humans didn't even have lights. We had the light from the sun, and it was in the sky, and then it would be gone in the evening. So you can imagine what a screen does to our brains. We have lost a certain rhythm. That does not mean that the society we live in now is not a good one or one where we can thrive. We can thrive. And so once you understand that it's cognitive overload that you're experiencing that causes the feeling of overwhelm, then you can work at the root issue, which is the cognitive overload. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling decision paralysis, or maybe you're more annoyed than usual, because that's usually how most people feel when they're overwhelmed. They snap at people that they love and they don't mean it. It just happens because your body is in a state of alert. Now, the state of alert ties into your nervous system, as you would know if you've listened to any of the other episodes, is that your nervous system is trying to protect you. Your nervous system is looking and scanning for threat. And when it feels this alert, it keeps your body in a heightened state. And this heightened state is not a bad thing, but it's not supposed to be a constant high state. It's supposed to dip down back into rest and digest. But when you're in a constant state of consuming so much through social media, news, notifications, workload, maybe your day-to-day is very hectic, and on top of that, in between, you are just scrolling on your phone. You can imagine what that's doing to your brain and your nervous system. Again, it is not your fault. It is a way that you have found helps to cope with that feeling. And I'm not here to shame anybody. We all have our things, and the point is that you are trying to take care of yourself. I think that's a really important part. Is if you're scrolling on your phone, but you are secretly hating that you're on your phone so much and you feel like you're missing out on life, that part of you is a part of you that really cares about you. As ironic as that is, your body is trying to cope. And how your body has learned how to cope is to get dopamine hits from scrolling on your phone. And so what about appreciating that part of ourselves instead of feeling really bad about it? Be grateful that you have a built-in system that's trying to soothe yourself. So now that we know that that's a good part of ourselves, let's just try and help that part of ourselves and teach it and show it that there are other tools that are going to work so much better because they're going to make us feel so much better. It's not going to be the short-term relief, it's going to be the long-term feeling of peace within. And that is what we're after. It is such a beautiful feeling. Let's break it down a little bit more and look at the cost of what this is doing to our bodies. On the cognitive side of things, this could look like decision paralysis, could look like your memory not being as good as it used to be, your attention span being shorter. Maybe you have decision fatigue. You're just so sick and tired of making decisions. And as mentioned before, on the emotional side, maybe you're feeling really anxious. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed, angry, sad. A lot of emotions can pop up in these moments. A lot of it ties into feeling this overwhelm and our body's just reacting naturally to it. How this looks like on a physical level, if you're looking at your body, you could have headaches. You could be extremely fatigued. You just want to sleep all day. It feels better than having to deal with your reality. There's so many. So if you have any chronic symptoms that have just, flared up whenever you're stressed, then usually there is a link. Obviously, consult with your physician about that. But a lot of the time, a lot of our feelings and our physical symptoms tie in together because your body is one big holistic body. It's not separate. Your emotions are not separate to your actions. Your symptoms are not separate to what your life currently is like, and you need to connect the dots in that way, because if you start looking at yourself as a whole human instead of a fragmented part, you are better able to look after the whole system. Now, let's think about the hidden reason, right? Let's dive a bit deeper into this. So we've spoken about cognitive overload, but we also want to speak about what that creates. We are basically in a low-grade state of alert all the time, as mentioned before. And the main culprits I want to pinpoint is the news. There is a lot of negativity bias within it. I'm not saying that you should be an ignorant person. I'm just saying look after your body, know when to dip into that when you are overwhelmed. It's not a good time to then put on the news. It's not a great way to start your day either. I personally would say really look after when and if you consume that information. The second culprit is obviously social media. We have a lot of access to screens. And a lot of the time, as mentioned before, this could be the thing that makes you feel better in the moment, on the short term, to give you those dopamine hits. But on the long term, it's not really doing much for you. It's actually continuing this low grade feeling of overwhelm. And the third is constant notifications. We are constantly available. And this can feel like a lot because that means that we somewhere deep in us feel like we're not doing enough, that we're not being enough, that we are quote unquote bad on our phones and a bad friend or a bad family member. And this can feel like a lot of guilt and shame unnecessarily because we weren't always tied to a device. We weren't always expected to be constantly available. So this is a new thing. And I want you to hear what you hear and adjust accordingly because that has really shifted a lot of my life. Just creating intentional time to get back to the people I love because I then make sure I pour from a place of fullness instead of just replying because I feel I have to. This is a key thing as well. And there's so many different factors, but I'm going to focus on those three because those three kind of create this low grade alert and this hum of overwhelm that you feel. Because it's also our go-to. It's on all the time. It's available to us all the time, especially through devices. What I urge you to do is, if you even switch off this podcast, that's fine. Take 5 minutes and all you need to do is start with awareness. I just want you to begin to understand how you feel. Does any of what I'm saying apply to you? If yes, write it down. Take 5 minutes. Like I said, switch this off if you want to, but I'm going to get into the answers soon. Take 5 minutes, write down anything that resonated, anything that you feel right now. Is there anything in your life that does stress you out? Where does it come from? Maybe start to notice your habits. Do you switch on the news first thing in the morning? When you open your eyes in the morning, do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel stressed as the day progresses and you had your second cup of coffee? Do you feel anxious? All I want you to do is, from an objective point of view, just observe how your day runs. That's all. And so, now that you've done that, we are going to now dive into what we can do to turn down the noise. Finding your way back to that quiet. I'm going to keep them short and sweet. Number one, we want to curate an information diet. So let's say putting away social media is too big for you. It feels too scary. Then work with what you've got. Create a new social media account that just follows your favorite accounts, uplifting accounts, ones that make you feel good. In the same breath, you can also just unfollow people that don't make you feel like that. You do not have to look at the social media that you created 10 plus years ago. You can start fresh, you can start new, you can use it more intentionally. So that's something that has really shifted my life. I have a third Instagram account apart from my personal and work, and I just follow about 70 or 80 accounts on there that I love so much, that make me feel so good. It's photography, it's film, it's underwater stuff, everything that makes me feel so good inside, lots of animals. And what that does, number one, I have now a beautiful little space that I can go to for the moments where I do feel like scrolling or taking in information or feeling inspired. But again, that's also created a beautiful algorithm because everything that comes up on there is stuff that I love. So I'm never having to feel like, oh, there's that post again about XYZ and it makes me feel heavy because I've created an intentional space. So that's my first tip. You can do that in any part of your life. It does not have to just be in the digital space. It can be a space in your home too. It can be whatever you need it to be. Create an area, digital or physical, that makes you feel good, because that is going to help you move through moments of distress. Number two, schedule no input time. So as much as I, as you know, recommend a podcast or listening to music or slowing down, We are filling every moment nowadays. We fill it with music, we listen to a podcast on our walk, we are listening to a series while we're cooking. So much of our time is accounted for and every moment is filled. So try, and if it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, schedule no input time, which means nothing is going on in that time. And number 3, digital sunset. I love this term because how you start your day is how you end your day. When I go to bed and I have been scrolling, I wake up the next morning feeling exactly how I felt just before I went to sleep, which is overwhelmed and stressed and not so good in my body. A digital sunset is basically to say work with when the sun goes down. When the sun goes down, our normal circadian rhythm, that would signal to us that it's winding down time, you're going to be resting or sleeping. But now, because we have these artificial little lights and phones, we stay on them and we scroll and we scroll. And so can you create a more intentional space? Maybe you've been longing to learn how to play the piano. Maybe that's too much for you. Maybe you think, I don't have time, or I don't have the attention span to learn. Fine. Is there literally anything else you could do? Could you read a book? Could you listen to music? This is now not a moment of no input. Have an input, but make sure that it's something that's going to calm you or relax you or not overstimulate you like social media or the news or notifications do. Even just turning your notifications off from when nighttime comes is a huge step in the right direction. So don't feel like you have to do a huge change. The smaller, the better. But those little moments, how I go to sleep, world of good. I started with 10 minutes before I went to bed, and then I scaled up. It took me time, but 10 minutes is all you need to really get that momentum, and you will feel so good that you'll start craving that time just before bed because it feels like the best part of your day. And number 4 is single tasking and making sure that you don't do everything at once. And there's this myth of multitasking. There's no such thing. You're just doing everything together and it's overstimulating your brain. And so what I urge you to do, because it feels difficult, is to single task. Just stop doing many things at once and just start with one thing at a time, because I can guarantee you, number 1, it might feel uncomfortable, but number 2, you are now teaching your brain to slow down and to focus on one thing at a time. And that brings back a very key aspect of what we need in society is our attention spans. And remember that if your attention span is able to even increase by 2 minutes or 4 minutes or 10 minutes, you are going to be stronger because your brain is going to not crave all the time having these hits. So if you can expand your attention span, you give yourself a window of opportunity. And that's something that I really want you to focus on, is that you have this opportunity now to make a different choice or a different decision. So you are understanding your brain and how it works, and you are supporting it to its full capacity. And that's what we want to take from all of this. We really want to understand, yes, we feel overwhelmed because we have a cognitive overload, and that can be difficult. But we want to understand that our brains are just not working really well, and our nervous systems don't work really well in the unnatural environment that's around us. That does not mean that it's our faults, and it does not mean that you cannot change it. You have the full capacity, as I always tell you, to shift your life in so many ways, but those ways happen with small intentional changes, with awareness, thinking about what it is you want for yourself. Sorry to say, but your day-to-day, how you spend your day and how you feel each day is reflected overall in your whole life. How your day is how your life is. And so if we are looking for long-term solutions, you are actually looking at micro moments in your day. And it's quite funny because you think you need one big massive change. You need to change your whole life for you to feel better. You don't. You need to shift tiny, microscopic moments in your day, but collectively and consistently, and you will completely shift your entire life. And you will feel that deep sense of peace within you. And I can promise you, as someone who has worked really hard on these micro little moments, that peace is something so valuable. It is why you're curious to click on this video. It is why you're curious to listen. It is why you're curious at how you can look after yourself. Because there's a reason. It's because it's so, so beautiful when you have that. Because it is your most natural state. We are supposed to be at ease. We are supposed to be at peace. We're not meant and we're not built to be constantly on edge and overwhelmed. So I hope that this inspires you to make small, meaningful little changes. If you have absolutely any questions, please feel free to reach out. And remember, the light that you're constantly seeking outside of yourself is just waiting to be acknowledged within. Have a beautiful day. See you all next week. Bye.